Hey, hurry up and show us the way. How long do you plan to keep us waiting? One man, speaking in German, was barking orders at the receptionist, Nina. She bit her lip and cast her gaze downward. Her short bangs fell over a scar on her forehead. Today was a big day for our company, as we were showcasing our new product to companies from around the world. But the lack of proper guidance had turned the reception area into a chaotic scene. All around, voices in different languages echoed complaints. Serves you right. That's what happens when a monster tries to act like a human. Nina's sister, who had just arrived, sneered with a twisted smile. Nina, her face pale, started to tear up. Someone needed to guide the people gathered here. Ideally, someone who could speak all the languages of those present. I took a step forward, taking a deep breath. To protect Nina from anything that might harm her. The company where I, Tyler, had recently joined was a medical equipment manufacturer and supplier with a broad overseas client base. The department I was assigned to was headed by Rose, the daughter of Mr. Hawkins, the company president. She was beautiful and highly competent, but her tendency to rely on her status as the president's daughter was her one major flaw. Tyler, didn't you graduate from that university known for producing top talent? And yet you can't handle even this basic task? I could have done it faster myself. I had just handed in some presentation materials for our upcoming product, and that was the feedback I received. Sorry, I'm still getting the hang of things. That's no excuse. As a mid-career hire, you should know you're expected to be an immediate asset. Rose, clearly irritated, wound a strand of her red hair around her finger. I looked away from Rose, scanning the office around me. But the other senior employees were focused on their own work, not even glancing my way. I realized, after 2 weeks here, that no one wanted to invite Rose's criticism, and was too busy perfecting their own tasks to have any energy left to help a newcomer. I returned to my desk, sighed softly, and began correcting the data Rose had pointed out earlier. Get it together. Rose's voice, much harsher than what I had experienced, rang sharply through the office. I looked up to see Nina standing where I'd been earlier. Our eyes didn't meet, but I quickly shifted my gaze back to my computer screen. Nina was Rose's older sister. That made her a daughter of the president as well. But unlike Rose, Nina struggled with her work. She also had an air of gloom about her. Her bangs were long enough to nearly cover her eyes, and she often looked down. We occasionally spoke out of necessity for work, but she mumbled so much that she was hard to understand. Perhaps because of this, Rose treated Nina quite cruelly. Despite being the elder sister, Nina never talked back, quietly accepting whatever Rose said. Given her unapproachable vibe and the risk of drawing Rose's ire if anyone got too close to her, no one really talked to Nina. I was no exception. With Rose's scolding of Nina in the background, I continued my work in silence. This was becoming a regular occurrence. Then, one day, I made yet another careless mistake, sparking Rose's anger once again. Absolutely useless. I can't believe you have such a prestigious background. Fine, just go organize the documents. Handed a large pile of unsorted files, I dejectedly made my way to the filing room. There, numerous files stored previous employees' estimates and sales records. As I wondered why I, of all people, was stuck with this menial task, I shook my head in frustration. No. I promised myself I wouldn't let arrogance like that creep in again. Determined to start fresh, I opened the door to the archive room, only to see someone peeking out from between the shelves. It was Nina. Seeing her here surprised me, but I managed to swallow back the startled noise that almost escaped my lips. Are you looking for something? Oh, no, I wasn't here to find anything. Rose just told me to do some organizing. Oh, I see. Nina quickly withdrew her face from view. I noticed that she, too, seemed to be sorting through documents. In the back of the room, the work table was piled high with papers and files. leaving me only the space beside her to set down my documents and search for files to use. Even though I thought it was odd to still be keeping paper records in this day and age, it was apparently Mr. Hawkins' policy. Having both digital and physical copies ensured that information was accessible even if one format became unavailable. I sorted the documents Rose handed me into proposals, estimates, and contracts, filing each in its designated place. After 2 hours of this, my concentration was fading. I glanced over at Nina, who was steadily and silently organizing her documents without so much as a glance in my direction. She seemed suited to this kind of quiet, detailed work. With that thought, I got up to return the completed files. But the weight of the file caught me off guard, and my legs, a bit unsteady from sitting, gave a small wobble. I stumbled, bumping into Nina's desk, scattering her neatly piled documents across the floor. Sorry. Setting down my files, I hurriedly began gathering the papers from the floor. Still, my actions didn't change the fact that I had disrupted her work. There was no undoing this mistake. Let me help you organize. So, how are you sorting these? Oh, I was organizing the meeting minutes by topic. By topic? You're doing all that? Rose's orders. Organizing by topic meant she'd have to read through each document. An obviously time-consuming task. I immediately recognized it as another one of Rose's ways of making things difficult for Nina. Realizing I'd likely be working overtime if I helped her, I tried not to sigh. Oh, actually, I'll be fine. If I know the year and which meeting it was, I can sort them without reading them. Without reading them? Wait, you've memorized it all? The agendas, at least. Okay, then, what about this one, second meeting of 2015? I pointed to a random meeting record, and Nina's expression tightened with focus. That was the meeting where we decided to host a trade show in Luxembourg. Checking the minutes, I found she was exactly right. Impressed, I looked at Nina, who quickly blushed and lowered her head. I can do this myself, so you should go back, Tyler. Rose will get mad at you. True, but since I'm the one who messed up the papers, let me help. We'll get done faster if we work together, right? But, ignoring her hesitation, I began sorting through the documents. I opened a meeting record to check its contents. That one is for the charity project. Please place it here. Following Nina's instruction based on the title she had glanced at, I set it where she indicated. Seeing me reach for the next document, Nina seemed to give up on insisting otherwise. Tyler, tell me the year and the meeting number, and I'll let you know the agenda. Got it. Alright, 2021, fourth meeting. That one's also about the charity project. While she answered, Nina continued sorting through the documents in front of her. I couldn't help but feel more impressed as she multitasked effortlessly, and I got back to my own work. What I thought would take over an hour ended up only taking 30 minutes, and I even helped with the rest of Nina's work. We managed to finish everything before the end of the day, and I let out a relieved breath. Thank you so much. You even helped with my remaining work. Don't worry about it, think of it as an apology. Besides, I had the wrong impression about you, Nina. The wrong impression? Yeah. Since Rose was always scolding you, I assumed you weren't good at your job. But you remember all the meeting minutes and could give me directions while doing your own work. You've got some real talent. And I only looked at the surface. I'm really sorry. I saw Nina's eyes widen beneath her bangs. And then she laughed softly. No need to apologize for that, but thank you. Nina's smile, which I saw for the first time, was incredibly radiant. I felt an overwhelming urge to keep seeing that smile of hers. I realized I'd fallen for Nina. Maybe it's simple, but I can't suppress this fluttering in my chest. I wanted to get closer to her. With that in mind, I decided to start talking to her more from the next day. Good morning, Nina. When I greeted her, Nina yelped, "Ah," and turned to face me with a blush. Realizing it was me, she let out a small sigh of relief. Her reaction, like a startled little animal, made me want to protect her even more. "Good morning. You really shouldn't talk to me too much. Rose will get mad." Nina looked around, noticing that a few employees were casting curious glances our way. Rose hadn't arrived at the office yet. She always showed up right at the start of the workday. Besides, I didn't mind if Rose saw us talking. I'm used to her scolding me. More importantly, I'd like to get to know you better, Nina. How about we have lunch together? Well, I brought my own lunch. So did I. Nina blushed deeper, hesitated for a moment, and then slowly nodded. Inwardly, I cheered. Hey, you too. It's time to start working. Get to it. I looked up to see Rose, who had just walked in, glaring at us with narrowed eyes. By the way, didn't you two take a suspiciously long time on those files yesterday? Oh, that's because Tyler helped me with my work. Of course he had to help. You're useless at everything, Nina. It's embarrassing to have someone like you as my sister. Nina lowered her head, clearly hurt by Rose's harsh words. Angered by her comment and seeing Nina's downcast face, I stepped in front of her, shielding her from Rose. That's not true. Yesterday, I accidentally messed up Nina's documents, and the only reason we finished on time was because of her skills. She has memorized all the past meeting records and managed to guide me through while doing her own work. She's actually an incredible asset. I raised my voice enough for the other employees listening around us to hear. Rose, clearly caught off guard by my response, stood there speechless for a moment. She then furrowed her brows, twisting a strand of her red hair around her finger. She's memorized all the meeting minutes? I can't even do that. There's no way Nina could. All right, Nina, what was the agenda for the 32nd meeting last year? It was whether or not we would sponsor the upcoming World Swimming Championship, which is this year. One of the employees nearby reacted to Nina's answer. Ah, I remember that meeting, I was there. Let me see, yes, it really was the 32nd meeting from last year. Hearing this, the other employees started murmuring. That was just a coincidence. It's not unusual to remember last year's agenda. All right, then, Nina, how about the 27th meeting from 1992? It was about strategies for securing contracts with a major Japanese corporation. The same employee confirmed this was correct, and cheers erupted across the office. Nina has a talent like that? To remember everything? I wouldn't remember even after 10 years. Nina, that's amazing. Nina seemed to shrink with embarrassment as she was praised by her colleagues. Just then, Fiona from our department approached Nina. Nina, could you help me with something? I'm in charge of setting up the company's trade show next month. And I wanted to look at past documents for reference. But finding the right meeting minutes is a challenge. Especially since the internal data doesn't support content searches yet. Oh, but I'm not sure if. I gently placed a reassuring hand on Nina's shoulder as she hesitated. You just need to share what you remember. You'll be fine. Nina looked up at me and, after a moment, nodded resolutely. Then she headed to Fiona's desk with her. As they walked away, I noticed Rose glaring sharply at Nina's back. Hold on, Nina. Now, Rose, no need to interfere with work. You were the one telling her to work, weren't you? With a light nudge, Rose bit her lip in frustration. Before spinning around and stomping back to her desk. Lunch break. As promised, I had lunch with Nina. As we opened our lunch boxes in the break area, Nina gave me a small smile. Fiona was so grateful to me. I'm glad I could help. It made me really happy. I found myself admiring how beautiful Nina looked in that moment. Just then, she looked up. Her eyes meeting mine directly from beneath her bangs. Thank you for encouraging me at that time, Tyler. If I'd been alone, I would have run away. I wouldn't have felt this happy. I'm glad you're happy, Nina. My face softened naturally as I spoke, and Nina, blushing, looked down and resumed eating quietly. Hey, Nina, would you mind if we had lunch together again tomorrow? Well, I don't think I'd make good company for lunch. I don't know. I'm really enjoying my meal right now. And, Nina, you should stop saying things like I'm not much. I told you I want to get closer to you, right? That's how special you are. As I spoke, Nina finished her meal and took a sip of her hot tea. Then, she looked at me, studying my face as if to gauge my sincerity. As I grew nervous under her gaze, she finally opened her mouth to speak slowly. I also enjoyed having lunch with you, Tyler. If you'd like, I'd be happy to eat together again tomorrow. Great. Looking forward to it, Nina. Suppressing the urge to jump for joy, I nodded enthusiastically at her. Since Nina started getting recognition, the office atmosphere had brightened. With her helping out, everyone had more time to assist each other and even chat about non-work topics, making the environment more relaxed. You know, we haven't had a welcome party for Tyler yet. Someone mentioned, likely prompted by the cheerful shift in the workplace. Before I knew it, my welcome party was being organized. Today's the day. At a bar that's apparently a favorite for holiday parties, everyone was waiting for me to give a toast. Once the greetings settled down, Nina took a seat beside me. Cheers, just between us, Nina said, holding out her glass of beer. I clinked mine against hers, producing a clear, resonant sound. Nina took a hearty sip of her beer. Nina, I didn't know you could drink alcohol. Well, being around you, Tyler, makes me feel more relaxed, so I guess the real me comes out. That's an honor. I replied, causing her to smile warmly. Her words made my heart race. She feels relaxed around me. That has to mean she trusts me, right? Does she like me too? I glanced over at Nina, but she was entirely focused on a plate of chicken wings. Shaking off my wishful thinking, I took another sip of my beer. Nina, pass me some too. Sure thing. She replied cheerfully, handing a dish over to Fiona. Nina, you've really opened up. You're like a different person from when I first joined. Hee, you think so? Nina, looking embarrassed, fidgeted with a nearby plate, which only made her even more endearing. As I admired her, Rose took a seat directly across from us. She'd mentioned she'd be late, so I assumed she'd just arrived. With a scowl on her face, Rose glared at us, twirling a lock of her red hair around her finger. Rose, how are you? I greeted her, trying to be polite, but she didn't respond. Lately, her mood had been sour. With fewer mistakes in the office, she had no one to vent her frustrations on. And even Nina had started standing up for herself whenever Rose's comments crossed the line. Rose seemed increasingly irritated, probably because her usual outlet was gone. I decided to let her be and turned back to my conversation with Nina. Nina was also concerned about Rose, but she would look at me if I broached some subject. And that simple gesture made me happy. Watching us intently, Rose suddenly smirked and picked up a glass with some melted ice left over from someone's drink. Tyler, you seem to be fond of Nina. But I wonder if you'll still feel that way once you know her true self. In an instant, Rose flung the contents of the glass at Nina. The cold water splashed so forcefully that a few drops even hit me. Nina, are you all right? I grabbed a napkin and leaned in to check on her. But then I froze at what I saw. Her bangs, always covering her eyes, were wet and stuck flat to her forehead. That's why I could see it. I see a big scar there. The entire room fell silent as everyone else noticed it too. Rose's smug grin widened as she took in our reactions. See that scar? Isn't it hideous? That's Nina's real face. A tear fell onto Nina's hand, which rested on her lap. She stood up abruptly, head down, and dashed out of the bar. "Nina!" I hurried after her, leaving behind Rose's triumphant laughter. Nina was running through the bustling city streets at night. She ran off without even apologizing after bumping into someone. The person she bumped into, noticing the scar on her forehead, shouted angrily after her, "Apologize, you monster." I wanted to hit him but swallowed my anger, knowing that catching up to Nina was more important. Eventually, Nina reached a deserted park and stopped there. I slowly approached her as she stared blankly at the moths fluttering around a streetlight. Hearing footsteps, Nina looked in my direction. Through her messy bangs, the scar on her forehead was clearly visible. Realizing this, she gave a self-deprecating smile and brushed her bangs back into place. "You followed me. Then you must have heard it earlier. I'm a monster, a hideous monster." Nina sat down on a bench illuminated by the streetlight. Small, round spots began forming on the ground. "Lately, people have been treating me well, and I got carried away. I was so happy to be useful to someone. To hear people say they wanted to be friends with me, that I thought as long as I kept this scar hidden, I could be just like everyone else." I gently touched her hand as she gripped her bangs tightly. "What are you saying, Nina? You're an ordinary person." "No, you're not ordinary. You're a truly lovely and captivating woman." Nina looked up, startled. Her tear-filled eyes sparkled in the streetlight like stars. I tenderly unclasped her fingers from her tightly held bangs. Nina didn't resist. "Even with this scar? The scar doesn't change who you are, Nina." Holding her released hand, I knelt before her, one knee on the ground, looking up at her as she sat on the bench. "I like you, Nina. I want to protect you from anything that might hurt you." Nina grasped my hand tightly and began to cry again. "I like you too, Tyler. When I'm with you, I feel safe and brave. You were the first to say you wanted to be friends with me." As she blushed with tear-streaked cheeks, I gently embraced her. Encouraged by her acceptance, I stroked her hair and then kissed her forehead. Nina smiled softly through her tears. "Tyler, there's something I want to tell you. It's about this scar." Only the moths drawn to the light and I heard the secret she began to share. The next day, when Nina came to the office, her appearance caused a stir. She had cut her bangs short, revealing her large forehead scar and her determined, sparkling eyes. "Good morning, Nina. You look refreshed." "Good morning, Tyler. Yeah, I feel great." As we exchanged cheerful smiles, the murmurs in the office quieted down a bit. "What are you all staring at? It's time to start work." Rose walked over, her voice sharp, then stopped in her tracks, eyes wide in surprise as she looked at Nina. Then, she burst into laughter, clutching her stomach. "Oh, wow! Look at you. What's with this look? Deciding to flaunt your flaws, are you?" "I'm not flawed." Nina's firm response made Rose stop laughing. "Ha? Have you even looked in a mirror? Oh, wait, you're a monster, so I guess mirrors don't show your reflection, huh?" "Rose, that's enough." I couldn't hold back any longer and stepped in. Seeing this, the other employees began to gather around us. "Yeah, that was uncalled for, Rose. Just because you're the boss's daughter doesn't mean you can say anything you like. What does a scar matter? It doesn't affect her work." Faced with the chorus of disapproval from her co-workers, Rose faltered. Well, everyone, like Rose said, it's already time to start work, so let's get to it, okay?" When Nina said that, everyone dispersed reluctantly back to their desks. Though some who often got help from Nina glared at Rose before returning. "Oomph, thought you'd save the day? Don't get cocky." Twisting a strand of her red hair around her finger, Rose turned her back on us. "Nina, starting today, you'll be working at the reception desk." A few days after Nina cut her bangs, Rose suddenly made this announcement. Nina's eyes widened in surprise. Reception. Me? Why? I asked my father to assign you there so you could practice showing off that hideous scar to the public. You should be grateful. Rose crossed her legs and sneered. Seeing her attitude, I and the other employees frowned. Rose, this is a problem. Nina is an important member of this department. No matter how much Nina has brightened up recently, isn't this a bit extreme? Be quiet. This is a direct order from the boss. Rose's harsh slap on the desk silenced everyone. But the cold stares remained. To cut through the tension, Nina stepped forward. I'll be fine, so don't worry. Like Rose said, I'm still not used to talking to people outside this department. So I'll see it as practice and give it my best. Though none of us liked it, we accepted it for Nina's sake. Unable to focus on work out of concern, I went to check on her during lunch. She looked surprisingly good in the reception uniform, but anyway. Nina, how's it going? Has anyone said anything unpleasant? Oh, Tyler. You're worried about me? Thanks, but I'm fine. It's only been half a day, I'm not worn out yet. Her amused smile made me chuckle despite myself. At first, the visitors were startled by my scar, but I think they'll get used to it soon. I've already remembered the faces and names of the people who came by earlier, so I think I'll be able to assist more smoothly next time. If they come to know me as someone who can work well, even with a scar, I think they'll eventually accept me, just like you all do. Relieved to see Nina standing tall and confident, I nodded. Now, let's get to lunch. Nina briefly went to the back and returned with her lunchbox. As we headed to the break room, we encountered Rose, standing firmly in our path. So far, so good, I see. But it's only been half a day. Let's see how long that dutiful attitude lasts. With that, Rose turned on her heel and walked away. I stood there in disbelief as Nina tightened her grip on her lunchbox, watching Rose's retreating figure. The product exhibition that Fiona had planned, with Nina's help, was coming up next week. Our department was busy with preparations for the large-scale event in the company's main hall, which would welcome visitors from many countries, not just English-speaking regions. The purpose this time was to engage with regional businesses renowned for their innovative techniques and development, rather than major companies. So we hoped to make a good impression by speaking their languages. I studied a bit of Chinese in college, so I can manage at a beginner level. Nina murmured during lunch, a hint of nervousness in her expression. Don't worry. We've prepared multilingual brochures, so you just need to hand them out. You're right. You, Fiona, and the rest of you have worked hard to prepare for this exhibition, so I'll do my best too. Her enthusiastic gesture, clenching both fists as if to pump herself up, was so cute that I couldn't resist giving her a hug. She blushed immediately. And so, the day of the exhibition arrived. Fiona, the lead organizer, was busy running around since early morning. Just bring these brochures to the reception area, right? I'll take them. Perhaps overwhelmed by the bustling environment, even Rose decided to help with the menial tasks, carrying a box of brochures out of the room. Before long, it was time for the reception to begin. I had reassured Nina, but I couldn't shake the worry, so I decided to check on her. The entrance was bustling with people. Voices in English, Chinese, Korean, Japanese, German, and Arabic filled the air. Every language carried undertones of frustration, making me frown. Navigating through the crowd, I finally reached Nina at the reception desk. She looked pale and was visibly flustered. Nina, what's wrong? Oh, Tyler. For a moment, relief flickered across her face, but then she looked as though she was about to cry. The brochures haven't arrived, and we've already started the reception. I don't know what to do. I glanced at the reception desk in shock. There were indeed no brochures. Rose had said she'd bring them. Well, isn't this a shame? Turning toward the voice, I saw Rose smirking with satisfaction. She held nothing in her hands. Rose. Where are the brochures? I left them with someone else who offered to bring them over. So, I'm not responsible, she said with an indifferent shrug. You brought this on yourself, trying to act like a normal person when you're not. Consider this a lesson. Anger surged within me at Rosa's words and behavior. But seeing the tears welling up in Nina's eyes, my anger faded, replaced by a resolve to fix this situation. Without the brochures, someone needed to guide the crowd gathered here. Someone who could speak all these languages. Hurry up! How much longer do you expect us to wait? A man in the crowd yelled at Nina in German. Nina bit her lip, lowering her head. Her shortened bangs fell to cover her beautiful eyes. I stepped forward and took a deep breath. I'll be your guide. Please follow me, I announced in German, loud enough to be heard across the entrance. The man yelling at Nina blinked in surprise. Oh, so there's someone who speaks German. Then, please guide us. What did you just say? As I started leading the German visitors, a woman pushed forward, demanding an explanation in Chinese. I said I'd guide you. Please follow along. I replied in Chinese, then repeated the same instructions in Japanese, Korean, and Arabic. The complaints filling the entrance immediately ceased. Nina, leave them to me. You handle the English-speaking guests. Nina looked up at me, stunned, and after a moment, nodded firmly before returning to her work. I then focused on guiding our international visitors in various languages. The exhibition ended up being a huge success. Apparently, we even closed more deals than usual. It's all thanks to Tyler's guidance. Thank you. I had no idea you were multilingual. Fiona praised me, and the other employees nodded in agreement. Embarrassed, I could only smile awkwardly. After my initial reception duties, several foreign guests had specifically requested I explain the products to them. So I'd been assisting them the entire time. Switching between 5 languages was exhausting, but seeing everyone's satisfaction made it all worthwhile. What's going on here? Who are you, exactly? Just then, Rosa's shrill voice cut through, her expression sharp as she glared at me. In response, I merely shrugged. What do you mean, who am I? I'm just the same useless employee you already know, Rose. Don't lie. You can speak all those languages. Why would such a skilled person? Skilled, huh? Her words made me look up at the ceiling, lost in thought. I used to believe I was skilled too. I was always top of my class as a student. I could pick up other languages quickly. So, when I landed a position at a top company, I thought, of course, they would want someone like me. And with that attitude, I worked there for 5 years. You went to the same college as me, right? Yet you can't even handle such basic tasks? Honestly, I could have done it faster myself. I coldly handed back the data that my junior, Tate, had submitted. Sorry, I'm still getting used to the work. That's no excuse. The fact that you went to the same university and work here embarrasses me as your senior. Tate, trying to hold back tears, returned to his desk. A few co-workers gathered around him, trying to comfort him. I scoffed, thinking they were wasting their time on someone so useless when they could be working. Looking back, maybe my attitude made me pay for that later. One day, I was assigned to lead an event for the company. Since the event required someone who could handle multiple languages, they chose me. But the task of planning an event wasn't my strength. You there, you're free, aren't you? Take over this task for me. I spoke to Tate, who I had dismissed before. But almost immediately, other co-workers stepped in, blocking my path. You know, you've been full of yourself for a long time. Just because you're good at your job doesn't mean you can act this way. We're not helping him out. Let him figure it out himself. They led Tate away, leaving me behind. I tried asking others for help, but nobody wanted to deal with me. Oh, talented Tyler can handle it all alone, right? They'd sneer. In the end, I scraped together a plan by myself, but it was so poorly received in the proposal stage that I was removed from the project. Tate took over, built the plan with everyone's support, and the event was a huge success. It wasn't until my pride was shattered that I realized how arrogant I'd been. But it was too late. Everyone was already fed up with me, and from that failure onward, I faced blatant coldness from my coworkers. There was no chance for redemption. Feeling like I couldn't stay in that company any longer, I left. And then I joined this company, vowing never to let my pride get the best of me again. Tyler? Nina's voice pulled me back to the present. She held my hand in both of hers. Her warmth chased away the chill of those old memories, filling my heart with warmth again. Thank you. I don't know what I would have done without you, Tyler. No, like I told you, I want to protect you from anything that might hurt you. I'm so glad I could be here for you. As I squeezed her hand in return, Nina's cheeks flushed as she smiled brightly. Relishing in that smile, I turned back to face Rose, who was gritting her teeth. Rose, you didn't hand the brochures to someone else, did you? I found the box hidden at the back of the archives room. Rose's face turned pale as she glanced around nervously. The other employees were all looking at her with disdain. Cornered on all sides, Rose started nervously twisting a strand of her red hair around her finger. And then, Nina stepped forward to stand in front of Rose, shielding her. There's no proof that Rose did it, right? Maybe the person she entrusted with the task hid it. No, Nina. Someone saw Rose carrying the box into the archives this morning. That's pretty solid evidence. At my words, Nina pressed her lips together tightly. Behind her, Rose shoved Nina aside, irritation plain on her face. Fine, yes, it was me. But Nina, you're always like this. Just because you're my sister, you think you can show me this protective attitude? Don't you get how much that bothers me? I can't stand feeling like you're looking down on me all the time. Sorry. Nina's voice was small as she looked away apologetically. Rose, only more agitated, glared even harder. Always hanging your head like that. It's so infuriating. How does someone bloomy like you, with that ugly scar, get more recognition than me? Rose, stop talking about Nina's scar like that. Oh, shut up. It's ugly, no matter how you look at it. Can you really say that, knowing that scar came from her protecting you? Rose gasped, her expression freezing in shock. Nina's head snapped up, her eyes wide. Tyler, please, don't bring that up. No, Nina. This needs to be said. Otherwise, Rose's arrogance and condescension toward others won't change. Nina opened her mouth, but no words came out. What are you talking about? That scar came from protecting me? Explain it to me. Rose demanded, her voice breaking. Nina seemed to make up her mind. Turning to face Rose directly. Rose, you don't remember. I never wanted you to know. I thought if you found out, you'd end up blaming yourself for taking Mom's life. Nina began to speak hesitantly, sharing the story of how she got her scar. Nina was 6 years old when Rose was born. When Rose was born, her hair was red. Neither side of Nina's family had anyone with red hair. Perhaps that was why Nina's paternal grandfather was furious. You cheated, didn't you? A child with red hair can't be my son's. That's impossible. Silence. That red hair is proof enough. Nina's mother denied it desperately, but her grandfather wouldn't listen. Nina's father, Mr. Hawkins, tried to intervene, but whenever he wasn't around, her grandfather would harass her mother. Divorce her. Or better yet, don't divorce, just abandon that child somewhere. What? How could you say that? I would never abandon my child. Nina overheard these arguments from the next room. Rose, who was still a baby, woke up from the noise and began crying loudly. Then, their grandfather entered the room. Looking down at her with hawk-like eyes, he terrified young Nina. Enough, be quiet. He picked up a nearby vase and threw it toward Rose. Instinctively, Nina threw herself in front of Rose to protect her. The edge of the vase struck Nina's forehead, leaving a large scar. She was taken to the hospital immediately. Fortunately, there was no brain injury. But she was told the scar on her forehead would remain for life. I'm so sorry, Nina. The incident weighed so heavily on their mother that, already weak from childbirth, she never recovered. When Mr. Hawkins learned of the incident, he was furious. He forced his father into early retirement, becoming the company's president, and banned his father from having any influence over either the company or the family. When Nina finished speaking, Rose's tears spilled over. Rose, you've done nothing wrong. The color of your hair has nothing to do with infidelity. Dad later discovered that he had a Scottish ancestor in his family line. That red hair is simply a genetic throwback. So, don't blame yourself. There's no need to cry. Rose shook her head fiercely. No, that's not why I'm crying. Learning what happened. I realize it was much harder for you than for me. I don't remember Mom. And her absence just felt normal because you were there for me like a mother. I never felt lonely. But it wasn't like that for you, was it? You remember Mom, don't you? You had every right to hate me, thinking I took her away from you. But instead, I treated you terribly without even knowing any of this. Sobbing, Rose was gently pulled into Nina's embrace. Rose's tears flowed even more freely. I'm so sorry, Nina. I called you ugly, I mocked you, and I'm so sorry. As Rose's body shook with emotion, Nina softly stroked her back, almost like a mother comforting her child. 2 weeks passed after the exhibition ended, and work returned to its usual pace. Tyler. Rose called me over to her desk. I want you to lead the next exhibition, she said. I stammered, taken aback. All I can really do is interpret. Planning an event like that isn't my skill. What are you talking about? Your team will help you. Looking around, I saw my co-workers smiling and nodding in support. Their warmth filled my chest. By the way, Nina's work at the reception has been so well received by our visitors that she'll be promoted to reception supervisor next month. Really? I said, smiling as pride for Nina's achievement welled up inside me. Then, Rose gave a small smile. I want you, and everyone here, to know I'll be transferring to a branch office next month. A collective gasp filled the office. And I felt my own surprise. The branch Rose named was notorious for being an unofficial demotion. This is a deserved evaluation. Not only did I act childishly with the exhibition, but my behavior toward all of you was unworthy not only of a manager but even a decent employee. I'm genuinely sorry. Rose said, looking down. The room fell silent. Well then, we'll have to throw you a farewell party, Rose. Fiona's suggestion met with agreement from others. Rose looked up, her eyes wide with surprise. We've noticed your efforts to change since the exhibition. So while we'll miss you, we'll be looking forward to your return, I added. Holding back tears, Rose pressed her lips together tightly. Oh, and Tyler, Mr. Hawkins has asked to see you, so please go to his office afterward. My heart skipped a beat at the direct summons from Mr. Hawkins, and I felt a wave of nerves. As I walked toward his office, I ran into Nina. Hey, Nina. Where are you off to? Mr. Hawkins called for me. Funny, he called me too. Wonder which of us should go in first. I'll check, she replied with a smile. When we arrived, Nina went in first. And quickly returned. Tyler, he'd like you to come in too. Following her lead, I entered with Nina at my side. Hello, Tyler. It's been a while since your final interview. Please, have a seat. Mr. Hawkins welcomed us with a warm smile, motioning toward the sofa. I sat down, finding the seat in his office as comfortable as I'd expected. Mr. Hawkins took the seat across from me, with Nina beside him. It felt a bit like an interview. Then, Mr. Hawkins stood, placed a hand on my shoulder, and spoke. "Tyler, I owe you my gratitude. Thank you for helping mend the relationship between Nina and Rose. I didn't do anything," I stammered, standing quickly in embarrassment. When I tried to stand up while saying so in a hurry, Mr. Hawkins restrained me, looked me in the eye for a while, and then went back to his seat. "Oh, but you did. I've watched over the two of them for a long time. I knew that Rose treated Nina poorly, but there was nothing I could do. If I showed favoritism to Nina, Rose would only grow more resentful. I realize I've burdened Nina greatly, especially with the matter of her scar. But you, Tyler, you became her ally. Because of you, they've both grown. Nina has brightened up, and Rose, well, she's taking responsibility to the point of requesting her own transfer." I was impressed that Rose had taken it upon herself to ask Mr. Hawkins for the transfer when he gave me a warm smile. "I hear you're dating Nina. Knowing it's you, I feel at ease. Please, look after her in my place." "Yes, of course," I replied, straightening up with a nod, and Nina's cheeks softly flushed. After our meeting with Mr. Hawkins, even as we walked down the hallway, her cheeks were still tinged with pink. "Oh, honestly, Dad. That felt like a pre-wedding talk with the parents. Don't worry, I'll be back for the real one." At that, Nina blushed even deeper, her face now fully red. "Why are you saying things like that, Tyler? Unless you don't want to marry me?" "No, that's not it. I want to marry you too. I've even thought we could build a home near the office and have 3 kids." Trying to sound a bit dejected, I was surprised when Nina responded so eagerly, making me laugh. "You've thought it through more than I have." "Oh no. I was supposed to keep that to myself," she said, realizing. "No, let's talk about it more. The first kid should be a girl, right?" "Yeah, someone sweet, like Rose," Nina said with a smile. "Well, maybe a little humbler than Rose?" "Oh, that's mean. Rose has changed, you know." Nina's words reassured me that she and Rose had indeed grown closer, bringing me a quiet happiness. If you act with arrogance and pride, life will eventually teach you a hard lesson. But if you can learn, reflect, and make things right, happiness will be waiting on the other side. Hand in hand, Nina and I dreamed together of that happy future.